One of my customers brought me this '07 Dodge here. I had a bad U-joint in the drive line and then the air conditioning. Said the air conditioning didn't work. I guess he took it to Midas or something uptown, and they told him like $2,800 to fix the air conditioning. And so he called me and he said, "Does that seem outrageous?" I said, "Yeah, I do a lot of air conditioning stuff. It just seems like pretty far out there on price-wise, and you've got to change everything." And that's what we're going to end up doing here. Basically, what's going on is turning on AC and it's putting power to the clutch, but the clutch coil is on the compressor is open circuited, and I called all over the place, and I've run into this before on these Dodges, that you can't just change the clutch and the coil on the compressors. It's not available. I couldn't find them anywhere. Maybe somebody else has got a line on them. That'd be kind of nice to know. If you do, man, please post a comment on. I'd like to find some clutches and just change the clutch and coil, because there's nothing wrong with the compressor. You know, it's just, it'll still pump up, it still turns. But anyway, so the new racket that they've got going on is that they want you to change, you know, and it's probably a good idea, but I mean, on this particular case, it's not a good idea, I don't think. You know, you got to remove the compressor, because this one's so hard to get the clutch coil off. But I mean, we didn't have a compressor failure, so you know, there's no. They want you to change the orifice tube, which is this tube right here coming into your. Actually, no, that's the wrong tube. We'll have to get the air cleaner out. I'll show you which one it is. But they want you to change the orifice tube, change the accumulator, change the compressor, flush it. You have to show all evidence of you buying this stuff, or they will not warranty your compressor. So it's kind of a bullshit racket thing that they've got going on, because they want you to buy all this junk. You know, when you got a clutch coil, it's kind of funny and ironic how they won't offer you just to sell you a clutch coil, but you know, we'll sell you the whole compressor, and but we won't warranty a compressor unless you buy all this other shit too. So I can understand that completely. If you had a major compressor failure and your whole system was contaminated with metal, but you know, not offering a clutch and a coil for a compressor, I think, is absolutely ridiculous. So, well, so you've heard of my rant on that now, so we'll get started on this. I've already evacuated the system. You need to properly evacuate your refrigerant into a recovery unit if you can get your hands on one, or just take it by a local shop and tell them, "Hey, can you recover my refrigerant?" And they'll charge you to do it. If you don't have a recovery machine, that's a good idea to do. And I mean, it'll save you. If somebody catches you venting this stuff off the atmosphere, you can get in some big trouble. So I just don't take the chance, because you never know who's driving by. "Oh, that guy's venting refrigerant off the atmosphere. I'm going to turn him in." So it just ain't worth it. Just go by and get somebody to recover it for you, and then you can go back and you can do the work, and you can pull your compressor and change your accumulator and change your orifice tube, and we'll go over all that stuff right now on this Dodge of what we're going to do there. So we'll be back in a minute. A lot of cleanup battery terminals that are really corroded bad on this thing. We got to take care of all that stuff and clean all that stuff when we put it back together. But you got a relay here. I believe that's for your intake air heater relay. Yeah, it's your intake air heater relay right there. It screws to this passenger side battery box. Take it loose. There'll be two 13mm headed bolts here and two on top for the battery box here. Take those loose. Take you a 5/16 nut driver or a ratchet, quarter-inch drive ratchet or whatever, and take all this bolts out for the inner fender. There's, I don't know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 8 or 9 of them in there, and pop your inner fender out of it. And then there's 2 more for this battery box in here. You got to get these out. And while you're in here, this aftermarket air cleaner that these guys have got in here, see, they've got some nuts up in here that I got to hold with a wrench so I can get the. Actually, I'll just leave them in there. Come to think of it, I think I can just pull. Yeah, I just pull this one bolt here and just pull the whole damn thing out of there, I think. I'll pop this I'll pop that radiator overflow hose out so we don't rip or break something there. Once we get that out, I'll show you where your high pressure lining is coming from your condenser that you need to change out on this system. Line that I bought. As you can see here, see where these indentations are? That's where it's crimped. Your orifice tube is built internally into the line. I mean, you can buy kits with compression fittings, and you can cut the line and put your orifice tube, shove it down in there. You can cut it like, oh, I think you cut them up here where the first crimp is, or just behind the crimp, and then you can put your orifice tube and shove it down in the pipe, and then you can put the compression fitting up here. But I mean, it's easier it's not that bad to change the line, because you're gonna have to pull the line out anyway to put the compression fitting on where this one's located. So you might as well just change the damn line. So this one here came with new O-rings for the other end. So I'll show you where that line is here in the vehicle here. It is, you can see that, this line right here. It connects right here. There's another line going over to your condenser, where your fitting is to hook your hose up, and then it'll come over. There's a quick coupler right here, and then it comes over to the evaporator right there. Goes into the firewall. So you got to pop your little plastic clips off there. Then I got to go get the tool. I'll show you what tools I got for those quick couplers. You can buy them at AutoZone. They're pretty cheap. You can buy like the whole set for like 25 bucks, 30 bucks. And I'll go get those tools, and we'll get this line out of here, and then we'll take our accumulator. That'll get changed out too. We got a new accumulator, and when you got your inner fender out, then your AC compressor is way easier to manage and get out of there. So you have to pop your serpentine belt out, take your 4 hold down bolts out. This is your high. They don't even really use a high cutout switch, I don't think, on these. I think it's a pressure transducer is all it is, if I remember right. I did an 08 Dodge here the other day, and I'm not really impressed with that. They're using a pressure transducer that reads going back to the ECM. And the ECM on the 08, I know, controlled the variable speed fan to speed it up and slow it down based on how much pressure was showing off this transducer, you know, to keep more airflow going through the condenser to drop the pressure. And the transducer was bad, and it was screwing up the compressors, because there's no, I think there's no cutout switch to cut the clutch out on the compressor. It's just supposed to speed the fan up. Well, the fan clutch was bad, or yeah, that's what it was. The fan clutch was bad in it, and it wasn't speeding up and slowing down like it was supposed to. So the only fail-safe they had on it when the pressure got too high was the high pressure relief built into the compressor. So it popped and blew all the refrigerant. Well, if you know about air conditioning, your oil circulates through your entire system. So it just kept doing that until it got low enough on refrigerant and oil. The oil wasn't in the system anymore, so it smoked the compressor in it. So I mean, the old, you know, in the old days they had a cutout switch that, when the pressure got low enough, the low cutout kicked the clutch out on the compressor, so you weren't constantly destroying compressors. So I don't know, some of this new stuff and their new ways of doing things, I'm not so impressed with. So I'll get this. So we'll get the orifice tube line out, the high pressure line, get the accumulator out. Get the compressor line out of there. That takes one of these. This is the tool. If you open this up, you'll see there's a little lip there inside. That'll go around. Let me get the old tube here. I'll show you. That'll go around this tube. Let me see if I can position this the right way where you can see. That'll go around this tube like so. You want to take that lip, see that spring inside there, and that'll go around there like that, and that'll compress that spring when you push that in, and you can pop it out. That's an actual 1/2 inch one. here, this one here I think is going to be 3/4 on this one, on the accumulator. Let's take that and pop those little phony clips off of there they got on there. And then we'll get another one to take this off, and then there's some 10mm bolts down here that hold the bracket on, hold it to the firewall. Pop them off. I got a new accumulator for it. General rule of thumb is, okay, so what we want to do, once we get this off, once we get our compressor off, we get all the components off, and then we'll take our lines and we'll dump some refrigerant flush through there. And then what I do on those, you can buy the flushing tool for them, or I've got a rubber tip blow nozzle that fits down inside these tubes, and I just pour the flush in there, and then I make sure I'll flush through my condenser, you know. So you'll have, before you put your other line on, you'll have this line off going to your condenser, and you also have, you'll have this fitting here that's going in your condenser. So you can come through here, you can pour a bunch of flush down into this line once you get your compressor off, or you can, you know, it doesn't really matter as long as you get some flush in there. Force some flush through that system, flush through the condenser, and that'll flush the lines too. And then you can flush through your evaporator, and then flush your low pressure. This is your suction line coming off your compressor. Flush that out too. Well, he's getting some pretty big rub marks on this line right here. We gotta make sure that's not rubbing like that when we put it back together. And then after you get everything flushed, and then you can put your accumulator on, and your new, you know, put all your new components on. And before you put those on there, on the ground, what I like to do on the accumulator, I'll pour, general rule of thumb is on an air conditioning system, so like on this pickup right here, is basically every component just factor in 2 ounces of oil. And I think this one's taking PAG oil. I'll have to look, see what kind of oil they give me. I'm pretty sure it's going to take PAG 46. It might take PAG 100. Let's just look, see what kind of oil they gave me here. It should be PAG 46, I would think. Yeah. And if you're like retrofitting from R12 to 134, you can put some ester oil in there too on that. That's a whole different subject. So what, you know, general rule of thumb is your compressor, just take 2 times whatever how many components you have in your system. So you got a condenser, there's 2 ounces of refrigerant oil. You got a compressor, there's another 2 ounces. You got your accumulator, that's your, you know, that's 6 ounces. And then your evaporator, there's 8 ounces of oil, plus maybe a little bit. Usually most systems will hold about 8 ounces of oil on them, and I'm not sure if this data plate tells you the actual capacity of the oil charge. It's going to tell you the actual refrigerant charge, 134A factory refrigerant charge, compressor oil right there. So it tells you PAG, ND8 PAG, service part number. It's not giving you a capacity though. It doesn't give you a capacity for the oil charge system. Very important on refrigerant systems. That's one good thing about flushing it. You're getting 90% of the oil out of the system. An overcharged system or an over oil charged system, too much oil in the system, it won't cool for crap. I mean, you'll just get lukewarm air out of there. The refrigerant flow won't be right. It'll make the whole system sluggish because there'll be too much oil in there. You know, it's overcharging the system is almost as bad as an undercharge. Most of the time, you need to be pretty close to your charge, and your oil charge needs to be pretty dead on. So, we'll basically what I'll do is I'll probably take like 4 ounces and dump it in the accumulator, and then I'll dump 4 ounces into my compressor. Take that one bottle, 8 ounces. Most refrigerant systems take 8 ounces. If you get a truck like a Peterbilt, you know, 379 or something with a sleeper on it, and it's got 2 evaporator cores, you know, it's got a bunk AC and it's got a cab AC, where you've got two systems, but they're kind of combined into one, running off the same compressor. Yeah, it's going to take more oil. You've got more components, so just kind of figure 2 ounces per component, and you'll be pretty close to where you need to be. So, alright guys, well, I'm going to get this accumulator off now, and then start unbolting the compressor. And one thing you'll notice that your compressor is a lot easier to get to now, so I'll have to get the serpentine belt popped off, unplug our line. I think I'll just leave that line plugged in, the high pressure transducer there. Unplug the clutch coil, take that one, it looks like a 10mm head, I think. There in the center, it's a center hold down bolt that does the suction and discharge line. And then take those 4 13mm headed bolts out, and we'll pop the compressor out of there. Got all our components installed, got our new orifice tube line in, I got our new accumulator, got the new compressor, got the oil charge in it already. 8 ounces of PAG oil. I put 4 in the accumulator and 4 in the compressor. Some of your compressors will come pre-charged with a little bit of oil in them, so you want to make sure that if you don't know how much oil's in there, take it and get you, a measuring device with ounces, and you'll have to turn the clutch on the compressor by hand and turn the ports over to where the oil will drain into that receptacle, and then turn that and see how much you've got in there, so you know what you're putting in. So that's a good idea to check that. So I got my vacuum pump hooked up right now on this thing. So here's the general rule of thumb on vacuum. Okay, so inches mercury vacuum, perfect vacuum is 29.9 inches mercury vacuum. Okay, so as you can see here on this gauge set, so we're in vacuum here where the green is. Everything around here is pressure on the low side. You get your low side and your high side. Okay, remember that orifice tube we talked about? Well, in the old days they didn't have orifice tubes. The old days they used expansion valves on everything, and they deal a lot of tractors. The expansion valve, in my opinion, is a way better setup. It controls the high and low sides, and your pressure is a lot better than an orifice tube does. So what happens is your compressor sucks in refrigerant from your accumulator here, and that would be your low side. From your low side of your system into your compressor, it discharges it through the high side. It goes through the condenser, it comes out of the condenser. Now, hence the word condenser. It's condensing a gas, a high pressure gas, back into a liquid. So it condenses it. It comes back into as a liquid, comes back in after it leaves the outlet side of the condenser as a liquid. It's been condensed, and it comes back into your orifice tube as a high pressure liquid. Then it hits that orifice tube. Well, that pressure drop with that gas, with that pressure drop in that orifice, what it does is it turns back into a gas, into a low pressure gas. So now you got a low pressure gas coming through this orifice tube right here, coming back into your evaporator. And when that low pressure gas is going through that evaporator, that's what sucks up all the heat in your cab. And all that heat is transferred back through the outlet side of the evaporator, back through the accumulator, and it basically comes back. And when it goes back through your condenser, that's where you're getting rid of your heat. Okay, so that's just a kind of a little bit of a theory of operation on an AC system. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. But what we got to do now is we're putting I recommend on a vacuum, especially if you're in a high humid area. I'm doing 30 minutes. I'm in a real low humid area in the northwest here. If you're in Texas or Louisiana or somewhere down south somewhere, where you got 95% humidity, and you're getting a lot of moisture in your system when you've got your lines and everything, opened up, put a 45-minute vacuum on them and get your moisture out of your system. That's the whole purpose of putting a vacuum on the system. And another good thing is it'll identify some leaks too while you got it apart. Something to look for on these. Alright, see how much vacuum we've got pulled on here? We've almost got 22, 24, about 25 inches of vacuum here. So basically take 1 inch of mercury vacuum. So if you're doing this stuff in LA at sea level or below sea level, you're going to be pulling, you'll be seeing 29, almost 30 inches of vacuum if you've got a good tight system. down there and you're pulling a vacuum. But if you're up here, you know, if you're in Colorado, basically take 1 inch of mercury vacuum plus every 1,000 feet of elevation you add. So right here at where I'm at almost 4,500 feet. So basically take 29.9 subtract, you know, about 4.5 inches, and I'm right at like 24.5 inches of mercury vacuum, or 25 inches. That's what you should be seeing on your gauge. So leave that on there for 30 or 45 minutes, and then once you get done with that, you can charge your system. But while we're waiting on that to get its nail done, we're going to clean some battery terminals. So hopefully that helps you guys out on some of this stuff, the explanation of this AC system. On this thing for 30 minutes. And a good indication is if you shut your gauges off, and if you've got a leak in your system, you'll start seeing your low side needle start moving rapidly, or not really rapidly. If it's a small leak, you'll saw it bleeding off, going back to positive pressure. Then you know you got a leak in your system, or in your gauge manifold somewhere, going either to your connectors on your vehicle or down to your vacuum pump. So make sure all that's good and connected tight. So after you get done pulling your vacuum, shut your vacuum pump off, close your gate valve here, close both your high and low gauge manifold valves here, and then you can unplug your hose off of here, plug it into your bottle, turn your bottle on, and you're going to go in as a liquid when you're charging. Turn it upside down, place it on your scale. I kind of wait a little while and let it quit shaking, and see if I can get it centered on there a little better here. Okay, so I get that thing steadied up. Now what I do is I'll open my high side and low side at the same time and do what I call a static charge. And let's see what this thing's calling for how much pounds and ounces. We are looking at 5967 diesel, 1 pound, 14 ounces. Okay. So now I want to go tare. And I'll open up both my high and low side. Now once we start the vehicle and we start pulling refrigerant in with the compressor to finish up the charge, you want to close your high side because your discharge pressure will be higher than your tank pressure. So what will happen is when you try to get this thing running, it'll be pushing the gas back into the bottle. So you want to charge with the vehicle running through your low side connection. I don't know if we're even going to need to do that. We already got 1.7 pounds, 1.8. Alright, well, we're not even really going to need to do that. It doesn't look like to even do a running charge on it here. Let's just see what we got. We're going to start this thing now, and we'll watch our pressures. I got a feeling we got a bad fan clutch, and the fan clutch took the coil out of the compressor. But you can't tell that till you actually get the vehicle running and get it all redone, and you figure out what went wrong. Okay, so let's turn on the AC. Let's go to now. I usually like to see, and it really depends on what the weather's like when you're charging these. If it's 100 degrees out, your pressures and temperature relations way different, but if it's kind of cool out, you won't see the pressures you're normally used to seeing here. So now our high side pressure is reaching. On these Dodges, you really got to make sure your radiator and your condensers are clean. Our fan should start ramping up speed and pull things down to make this discharge pressure drop. I'm not seeing that happening. The fan is not ramping up speed like it's supposed to. I got a feeling we got a bad fan clutch. Another Dodge with a bad fan clutch. See, it's going too high. It's not pulling air through the condenser. Just not happening. We gotta shut it off. We need a fan clutch. So what happens is, in the old days they had on trucks they had, what they call a binary or trinary switch that'll kick the fan on. It's a air operated fan clutch. Because when this thing will probably be just fine going down the road, but it's when you're stopped and there's no air moving through that condenser. And if that fan doesn't ramp up speed to pull more air through, that's going to climb till it either cycles the compressor off or blows the relief on the compressor. So it's just not good. So we've got to fix that. We've got to, I'm going to try to blow this condenser out and clean this out and see if it makes any difference. And then I don't know if my scanner will manually run the fan to see if I can ramp the speed up on it or not. I'm going to try that too. Now, turn our AC on. Desired fan PWM 98%. It's trying to command it on, so the ECM is commanding the fan to speed up, and it's not speeding up. And here's our high side pressure. See, and it's red. That should be, it's too high. This thing should be coming on and speeding up, and it's not doing it. So let's shut it off before we ruin another compressor. I mean, it's blowing cold, but our fan speed's just not right. Turn that off, and then our pressure should go back down. Every one of these Dodges, it's always the fan clutch, guys, I'm telling you. But that's what you need to look for there. You need to look and see, your percentage, your desired. I know you're not going to have, a lot of guys aren't going to have a scanner to do this with, but I can tell you 9 times out of 10 on these Dodges, it's the fan clutch. It's gone to hell on it, and they're not locking up anymore. The ECM sending the signal to it to lock up based on the pressure that it's seeing on the AC high side pressure, and it's not locking up and speeding up and pulling enough air through the condenser to drop the pressure. So then the pressure gets so high that it either blows the relief or it just cycles it on and off till it burns the clutch up on the compressor. Our fan clutch changed on this 2007 Dodge. That's the old one on the bumper of my service truck. Well, let's do our little test now. We got it running, and I'll show you what happens when you get a good fan clutch in here. Okay, right now we got the air conditioner off. And there's our AC focus there, camera. AC high side pressure, AC high side voltage. We're really concerned with the high side pressure and our radiator fan speed. See, our fan is unlocked, 357 RPM. So let's turn our air conditioner on. Okay, you see our desired fan speed now is, it's jumped up to 98.84% duty cycle. And our fan, see how our high side pressure is not speeding up anymore? Now our fan speed is raising with our engine RPM. Yesterday it would not do that. Now our high side pressure, as you can see, is not going into the red. It's staying down there where it should be. And our air conditioner and the vents here are blowing nice and cold. Pretty cool out today, so it's really hard to judge how cold it's blowing. I mean, when it's cold outside, and you know, it's really hard to tell. But we definitely know we solved the problem with the fan. So let's turn the air conditioner off. Now our duty cycle on our fan should have, our pulse width modulated signal on our fan should have went away, and it did. It'll take a little while for that fan to actually, the viscous part of the fan to unlock. So you keep it revved up here, and it should unlock. There it goes. It should go back down to, you know, whatever, probably 329 is what it was saying, or whatever there. Yeah, it's going down. The other one was staying 800 all day long. It was just stuck. It wouldn't go up or down. These viscous, you know, they're electric, but they're still viscous clutch in them. They actually work better when it's warmer, because the oils, they work like shit when they're cold, because the oil's thick in there and it's not moving right. So let's turn our air conditioner back on. You can see our pulse width modulated signal goes back up to 98.84%. Our fan speed should start raising. There it goes, it's going up. High side pressure is going up. Usually once these things will get to a certain point, they'll see now it's going to 14.98%. It knows how much voltage it needs to put to that for a certain fan speed. So it keeps that at a certain fan speed to keep our high side pressure down. Well guys, that's the gist of it. I mean, most of the times on these Dodges, this is what you're going to run into. Your fan clutch, I had one last summer, it was an 09, and it had built up so much high side pressure that it snapped the shaft in two inside the compressor. You could spin the clutch, but there was nothing happening. I took the compressor apart, and the shaft was snapped clear in two. I don't know if the relief didn't lift on it when it was supposed to, or what, but and either that, or you'll have a clutch coil. It'll cycle the clutch on and off, on and off, on and off, because the high side pressure will get too high, and the ECM will shut the power off to the clutch because the high side pressure is too high, and then that on and off just kills those clutches, and then it'll eventually burn out the coil in the clutch. So, alright guys, so give me a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.